Here's how I go July 14th, 2022, about the incidents in Donbass. For one thing, let's get real clear who I'm speaking to. The imaginary other is this gang of warlocks. We look and say he's the one that disrespected our heroes. So I disrespected the heroes when I was 9 years old and heard that the absolute fright I was in was because I was chickenly about things like the My Lai massacre. That's disrespecting our heroes. And I never really got that through my head. When I heard about Central America, I was put off by it, to say the least. When I heard about the war in the Middle East, I was just staring into space. I was so dumbfounded. Where was the morals? Where was the thought? So, when I hear Latvia is doing military mandatory over Ukraine, I get, That's what. So it's going to be military mandatory, so we don't disrespect the heroes. Now, what's disrespecting the heroes? Here's what I saw. I saw tanks pour into Kiev because Russia wanted to protect Russian-speaking people who mysteriously had died in the thousands after the Civil War. I did a little digging and discovered that the duly elected, very popular, largely pro-Russian Ukrainian president was nearly assassinated in a coup d'etat. That Russia had to step in so that he could escape with his life. And I saw for myself the neo-Nazism that broke out in Greece and have reason to deplore the legacy of Bandera. Now, Europe was all, he's blitzkrieg, and he wants to overrun Kiev so he can set up on the western border and invade Finland and Poland and who knows what all got next. So sticking to this tune, even as an absolute psychopathic incident took place in a nuclear power plant, it can never be explained. And the quest of ideology did take place, and everybody says this is a war of ideology, this is a war of propaganda. No, it's a war of children who are in pain and fright. Is what it is, war. And the ideology and the propaganda is driving the machines that's doing that. But the ideology is secondary. It's just a Red Cross emergency. Is what it's a war of. As all wars are these kinds of emergencies. The fact that it's a mental health problem is an ideological issue because ideology is a mental health problem in a case like this. It's not proven that Russia can't be negotiated to a standoff about Donbass because that's all they wanted in the first place. It's not proven that the neo Nazis who existed in the Ukraine weren't deliberating to start up problems with Russia so they could get tons of weapons, which they're smuggling into other mercenary countries, to other mercenary groups. I've heard from firsthand credible sources that Al Qaeda in Syria, where Russia was doing an honest job, is receiving mercenary weapons. And I know for a fact it's part of history, and you can erase, get out your erases and start rubbing a history like you claim Russia always does. That when they tore down the Berlin Wall, we abhorred the development. And we've been demanding it and demanding it and demanding it. Suddenly it wasn't what we wanted after all. We promised not to expand NATO. What did we do? We expanded NATO. We said that the anti-ballistic missile treaty was reneged, but it wasn't because of we wanted to anti-ballistic missile into Russia. But that's where all the anti-ballistic new material that was a result of the renege what got planted. So who's lying through the teeth now? Tell me who's lying through the teeth now. So we get. And I just heard a good one. This guy who was buying up somewhat legitimate people were distributing shares of um, giveaways when Russia privatized. He would buy up the shares rather, and make a bother because they become his shares or something. It was some boondoggle. He got real wealthy, and he faced off with Putin. Putin put him in prison. Everybody knows Putin's eccentric and not very nice to his opposition. Nobody likes that about him. But what is there to say? Except you're sorry that happened, but you don't know the details because nobody ever talks about the details. Nobody knows for sure what happened. So you hear this guy, he comes out and he says, and no comments allowed, by the way. You can't say nothing about this. He says, Putin, if you give him an inch, he'll take him out. The minute you accommodate him, he just comes at you more aggressively. He's a judo man from Goldfinger who only chokes the opposition to death. If you don't let him win, he'll be so disgruntled, he'll sneak up from behind with Maxwell's silver hand, and so on and so forth. And they have plenty, you know, money on that they'll get intimidate anybody into saying that if they don't want to get Bandera types out after them. So you have to wonder, is this supposed to be convincing about Putin, or is it supposed to make you real scared of God? Because God will fix your wagon if you don't put down Putin. So you're caught in this, monkey in the middle jobs, right? You bounce back and forth. What has this got to do with me? I wasn't in the Ukraine. I wasn't at the Orange Revolution. I saw January 6th. I hear there were snipers shooting both sides. That's what I hear. Credible evidence that there were snipers shooting both sides to get it going. And so we have a situation where now both sides are at each other's throats and nobody wants to be diplomatic because, hey, that's the Ukraine. Hey, what's Russia doing there? And then they say, well, if you let him uh, protect the Russian people who were disputably being singled out for hostilities by the right wing of Ukraine. It's disputable. I've seen contrary evidence. That's the whole problem with both sides, really, is they don't like contrary evidence to their opinions. And where's the UN? Where's Turkey? Where's some, you know, person like me, right, supposed to interject their feelings about working out on the basis of knowledge? If you ask me, the claim that Joe Biden looked at Putin and said, I see a man without a soul, is a grossly irregular thing to say. I agree with Putin 100%. That's a grossly irregular thing to say. It has nothing whatsoever to do with diplomacy. It's um, it's it's like tossing your hat out and saying nobody's going to care what I say or do because diplomacy is out of the question. And there's plenty of evidence that for NATO, diplomacy is out of the question. They don't want anything to do with diplomacy. They want to have a hot war because that's how they get their dollars, you know. And so they say, well, Putin wants to have a hot war. There's plenty of contrary indications. Lavrov is one of the most diplomatic and well-spoken people in the game. I mean, I'm sure that someone could trot out an itinerary of things that he has um, done that cross swords with the West, make people say he's a terrible human being. But I have not seen them. And so, and I don't know their level of credibility, but I have seen what the West has done in Iraq, which was pure hallucination, and Syria, which was shocking. And the one thing they always say is things like this is a war of ideology. It's a war of children in terror. And until you can understand that it's a war of human beings who can't defend themselves from either side. You're not really in a position to pontificate about the rights and wrongs of your so-called ideology, because the only ideology that's worth a damn is trying to stop these kinds of things so that we can work together to save the planet. And these foolish war games, which turn into mind games of Hollywood, need to be questioned. People say, "Oh, well, I believe in peace, but," and when you're attacked, you don't believe in peace anymore, right? That's the way it works. So that's what they do. They say, "Well, we represent the butternautics, the butternautics, the buttertronics. We are the buttertronic bots who come buttertronically out of the woodwork whenever somebody says they believe in peace, and attack that individual as a matter of um, routine, because we want to see the person chafe. We want to see what it would take to make the person say, "I'll shake my fist at you," so that after, knifing Shannon Harps, for example, Sound Mental Health gets the queer bait to shake his fist, and now all of the terrible things they've done in reprisal to prove that virginity is rape, like raping Deaf Genie and so on. It's justified because the Buttertronic bots have proven that if you massacre an innocent person, a frightened individual will shake his fist at you. And so then this is the background of these sneaky people from the Ouspensky circle who established this parameter so they could transfer. Here's the parameter, and there's ideological combat going on here. So Latvia needs to get military draft going. So the U.S. needs to watch the dissonance, because the dissonance is going to have a deleterious effect on our ability to winnow away at Russian strength. And Putin asked for it. Well, who knows what Putin wants from all of this? He's been meeting with Oliver Stone, and from what I gather, he's been meeting with Brian Eno and the Beatles. So it looks to me more like a controlled policy of powers scrambling to maintain power through the age-old art of nuclear brinkmanship. Scared the devil out of everybody, and they won't ask any questions, and they'll choose sides. Once they've chosen sides, they can't. They're stuck. They can't think. They can't sort things out. They can't look at both sides once they've chosen both sides. Who's the one? And presumably, the people who are more sympathetic to Russia say it's Russia who is less likely to try to force you to choose their side. They just want a fair chance to explain their side and have the history understood. Now, I'm one of the people who thinks that's basically true. I oppose the invasion. It goes without saying. It's not an ideological thing. It's a bunch of children being racked up and killed. Nobody can stand for that. It's Uvalde writ large. Nobody can bear that. But, to say we won't negotiate is like being those cowardly cops in the hallway who refuse to storm the building. We have to storm the building with the determination to negotiate, to bring this thing to an end, to resolve it, make peace, and understand its causes, and to put a stop to the massacre of children. That's what we need to do. And the lesson from the Uvalde berserkers who pulled that whole thing was that the kid murdering children was like Putin, and the Latvians resisting, um, understanding, who were disrespecting our heroes up there in Tacoma in the little shallow room of cowardice we call Section 8. These are the people who stand out in the hallway whistling Dixie while Putin goes about his business in the classroom. I don't see it that way. I see the ideological determination not to bring crime and the game and the war and the uh, peace processes in the effort to negotiate and understand and open doors to understanding and put a stop to this business and stop being so crazy and criminal towards each other are the people out in the hall who refuse to take action. That's the way I see it. So the action that needs to be taken, in my humble opinion, is to get to the bottom of the mystery. What's the mystery? The mystery is, was there really a coup d'etat where the leader who was rightfully elected was nearly assassinated? Why were 14,000 people who were Russian separatists killed in Donbass? These are mysterious issues. And you say, oh, they gave Putin a pretext. Well, let's say that. Say it's just a pretext, but it happened. And he's just using it as a pretext. He shouldn't get upset about that. He's the leader of Russia. Why should he get upset when the Russian people are being singled out for civil war objectives of a group that is known to have associated with Bandera? They're known to have. I mean, it's an exaggeration to call the people of the Donbass um, uh, neo-Nazis, the people out in Kiev neo-Nazis. That's clearly an exaggeration. Say that. Say what's with these exaggerations. We know there are problems. Admit that there are problems. And get to the bottom of the problems and stop all of this refusal to discuss the situation. Stop it. Stop it. Open your thinking processes and learn about the situation and look at the processes. We had absolutely no right to expand NATO after we promised we would, and we did. We did. We did. We just, so what? Why shouldn't we? And Biden says it's a strategic failure if we don't. What do you mean it's a strategic failure? What's the strategic success? Breaking our word, making mincemeat of our word, making money for Hunter Biden and Donald Trump. I mean, the people, the dude who Putin put in prison. I don't know anything about him. I don't have anything against him, but it looks to me like he was just one of the oligarchs who doesn't really have a whole lot of compassion for the people of Russia. I don't know. It looks to me that when it comes to Navalny, that he shouldn't be in prison. I've met people like that who have taken off after me personally, and I've never sought to put them in prison. I don't know that he's doing anything wrong. I don't have the people who are objective researchers have said that it was a corrupt trial and it was politically motivated trial and it's typical of Russia. We'll say that. Nobody's trying to stop you from saying that. I'm not saying it's not true. I think Navalny should go free. I also know that Oliver Stone has picked on me ruthlessly, and he meets with Putin. I have nothing to gain from Putin. I have nothing to gain from Putin. Why should I? Why should it's the same thing with Trump. I don't want them wish any harm on them at all. I just want them to leave me alone. And the people who want to be left alone by these power structures need to say that. They need to say, we want to be left alone by you. We don't want to be pulled into a military job. We want to understand the issues. We want to hear more objective reporting about it. We want to know both sides. Let the journalists who understand have freedom there, and don't say we're not going to hear them because they don't toe the line of the Latvian military draft. Because Tacoma isn't Latvia, and I'm not disrespecting anybody's heroes. What I'm saying is that war isn't about ideology, it's about the death of children. It's about the death of human beings who can't be replaced, who are needed and want their lives. And there's one thing I do know from both sides is that there's three things that Russia and the United States pick on first thing they can. It's rich people, Muslims, and Buddhists. So we gotta let go of these biased, crazy, paranoid tendencies and look objectively at the situation when it comes to taxing the rich because the cities don't have the money to repair our infrastructure. Look at the Fernhalder Bridge collapse in Pittsburgh. This was in the backyard of people who carried on endlessly about dissing the heroes. What? One of my friends could have been killed when that bridge collapsed. She goes over it all the time. A bus could have been. Buses. I used to drive a bus and I used to stand on that bridge thinking all the time. It's 2 blocks from my mother's house. How dare you lecture me about the nature of reality when you don't even have checks on the infrastructure and when you want to build more bombs? And you say that's Putin's mastermind. Putin's mastermind. We must help John Schulman steal from the Carnegie because Putin's mastermind. We need nuclear bombs. We need to give bombs to the Ukraine so they can smuggle them into Syria to raise money so Oliver North can mine Nicaraguan harbors some more. And Michael Reagan will get his favorite scene. We're going to send nuclear. Well, we can't send nuclear, but we're going to send everything shot. And they're going to promise not to use them on Russia. They're going to take them to Syria. And we're going to get money. Money, yes, money. And we're going to use them to mine Nicaraguan harbors. Yep, that's what we're going to do. And this is the mentality of the Fernhaler Bridge gang in the city of Pittsburgh. And you expect me to think, oh, they telling the truth, right? They know what to do. They know how to reach out to Vladimir Putin and Sergei Lavrov and set things right so that Russia feels comfortable in the European Union. Oh, wow, that's neat. I believe you. Oh, yes, I do. I sure believe every word you say. So tell me some more. And tell me how comments off signifies that you don't that you review every skeptical citizen's concern without reservation and at all times with an open mind.